Hi, everyone. Welcome to Conversations with MM. This is our second episode for 2023, and hope everybody's doing well and gearing up for the new year. And our guest for this evening is a wonderful an amazing woman, a writer. She's born in Ukraine and she's now based here in New York. She's no other than Marina Rubin, whom I met a few years ago. And she was born in Vinnytsia, Ukraine, and immigrated to the United States in 1989. She is an associate editor of Mudfish, Tribeca's literary and art magazine, and a 2013 recipient of the Coheco Blueprint Fellowship. Her work has appeared in over 80 magazines and anthologies. She's the author of the critically acclaimed flash fiction collection Stealing Cherries and the present short story collection Knockout Beauty and Other Afflictions. It has received an honorable mention for the 2020 Miami Book Fair Emerging Writer Fellowship. In addition to writing, Marina is an avid mountaineer, having summited Kilimanjaro, made it to the Everest Base Camp, and completed the Tour de Mont Blanc and Camino de Santiago. She lives in Brooklyn. And her book, Knockout Beauty and Other Afflictions, came out in public on January 12th. So, no, without further ado, the Knockout Beauty herself. Welcome to Conversations with MM Marina.
Hi, Maravir. Thank you so much for having me.
Happy to have you here. Thank you again. And also,
And Happy New Year. Is that too late to say that now?
no,
Is it
it's
like
never too late.
have we reached that deadline already where it's not appropriate to say it anymore?
I think the entire January is still New Year.
Okay.
How have you been?
Very good. Thank you for having me.
Yes, congratulations on this book of yours, which also has been another celebrated creation.
Thank
So,
you so much.
could you give us a summary of the book? Since I haven't seen it, I haven't read it yet, too.
Um well, this is it.
Yeah.
So Knockout Beauty and Other Afflictions is a book of short stories. There are 15
Uh-huh.
stories. A lot of people say that it's a book of women's fiction, but I think it's a
Yeah.
very limiting viewpoint of literature because, women don't exist in a vacuum. So women's fiction, it's a very, tight box. When in
Uh-huh.
reality, it's a book about work. It's a book
Mm-hmm.
about travel. It's a book about relationships. It's a book about families,
Correct.
friendships, loss,
Mm-hmm.
grief. It also has elements of humor. There are people looking for relationships. There are people mourning a loss of a friend. So as the jacket of the book says,
Mm-hmm.
it's a collection of stories of desire, damage, and human meandering. And I
Uh-huh.
especially like the word meandering because first of all, a lot of people don't know what meandering is, and I actually heard this word um, at a concert, at a recording of a Leonard Cohen concert where,
Mm-hmm.
he made a speech, he welcomed his guests, and he said about human meandering. And I thought, what a great concept, because meandering means searching, swaying, trying things, undoing things, going back to do it again, daring,
Uh-huh.
stopping, looking, searching, stopping again. So it's meandering, and that's the way life is. And I felt like this was such a good um, metaphor for what this book is about.
It's amazing. So, what inspired you to write this book?
Well, this, believe it or not, this is my fifth book, even
Uh-huh.
though I pretend to be a very young woman who started writing when she was 5. No, um,
Okay.
I've been writing. I started out in poetry, so I wrote 3 chapbooks of poetry. Then
Mm-hmm.
my fourth book was a collection of flash fiction stories called Stealing Cherries, where the stories were this small. I had an
Mm-hmm.
idea that I wanted to write something that would fit um, on the screen of an iPhone, because I felt that, the attention span of today's audience had gotten so
So short.
limited, and it's
Yes.
all about Facebook and iPhone. Can I read this? And Twitter,
Right.
can I read this on my screen? And
Uh-huh.
so that was the natural progression for me from poetry to very short fiction. And when Stealing Cherries came out, a couple of I was on a book tour, and I was this, that, and then I felt that, what, I had underestimated the audience a little bit. And I
Oh.
feel that people can read a normal short story. And I had a lot of material, and writing for me is never, a choice. It's not like let's sit down and write. It's more like it's a force that needs to be
To be done.
answered. Right.
Oh,
So I had a lot of material in me, and these stories were just coming out. And so I had to put them on paper. I had to serve my God.
I'm so glad that like a woman like you persists in writing, because I think women writers are rare species. So um the book, this came out January 12th, just recently.
This is today's January 10th, so it's
10.
coming out on Thursday.
Oh, I see. Oh my god, I have lost my, I don't know my calendar anymore. I thought,
Completely normal. Most of the days, I don't
like,
even
what
know
day
what day of the week it is,
so it
let
is still
alone
coming out?
date.
Will
It's
it be?
coming out on January 12th, right? I'm
And
hosting a big book launch in New York
uh-huh,
City on the 12th. And then the book, where, all the guests are getting the book as a part of a gift bag. And then
uh-huh.
the book will hit all the bookstores on Friday, January 13th, the day after the book launch. So this book launch is kind of an
Congratulations.
exclusive um, gift to all my friends and fans in New York City. So they will get
Amazing.
it. They will get it 24 hours before everyone else.
That's great. That's great. So where is the book launch going to be?
The book launch is hosted by an organization called Kajeko. It's a
Uh-huh.
nonprofit organization that supports Jewish immigrants living in the United States, and also Ukrainian refugees.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be held at the UJA building on 59th and Lex.
Uh-huh.
On Thursday from 6 to 9 p.m. It's going to be a reception, a reading, a performance. Um, and the proceeds are going to a portion of the proceeds are going to the Ukrainian Refugee Fund of Kajeka.
That's a very wonderful endeavor, Marina. That's good. And I'm looking forward to be there. I
Of
hope to be
course, you're
there.
definitely invited.
I hope to be there, and cross my fingers that I'll be there. So going back to your book, why do you call it Knockout Beauty and the Other Afflictions? So it's kind of
Um,
paradoxical.
I know, and
Uh-huh. And very,
it
that's
was.
why it's catchy.
Thank you. Yeah, that's what we wanted to go for with my publisher, because ironically, this book went through four different titles because we were trying to narrow it down and really define define the concept and the essence of this book. And at the end, we came up with this title because it was really indicative of the themes um, and the melody of this book. So it's twofold. So
Uh-huh.
knockout beauty is a line that appears in one of the centerpiece stories in the
Uh-huh.
book, where the main character, this very young naive kind of girl that is going through a coming of age story, she's pondering what life is, and she says um, that you got a life for this knockout beauty and boredom. And this is the line in the
Uh-huh.
book, and this is what she says, that you have to love it just as it is, not for how you want it to be, but for how it truly is. And um, I strongly believe that life is really kind of meandering between these moments of this tremendous beauty, and we're not talking about just like landscape, sunset, or physical beauty. We're talking about beautiful moments. We're
Mm-hmm.
talking about beautiful memories, beautiful experiences, and they're and of course beautiful nature that we're all a part of.
Uh-huh.
um, and it's so powerful. That kind of beauty is so powerful that it knocks you off your feet. And that's why she's saying that life is all about this knockout beauty on one hand, and then boredom, and it vacillates between knockout beauty and boredom,
Oh,
and tediousness, eh,
routine and all that.
and routine, and grief and loss, and just like all kinds of misfortune, and then again you're hit with this knockout beauty. um
Oh, oh,
and
amazing.
so that's the first part of the first part of the title. And then the second part of the title, Other Afflictions. Afflictions means misfortunes,
Mm-hmm.
sadness, something bad. um, One of the stories in the book, um, the second to last, is called The Adirondacks, and it's a very short story, but I found it to be, when I wrote it, I wanted it to be a little bit more inspirational as opposed to artistic.
Uh-huh.
And usually I don't write inspirational stuff, but I felt like we all could use a little hope and a little bit of um, um, a motivational, uh, I- I- a little inspiration. That's how I
Right.
felt. And so in that story, this woman
Uh-huh.
is finds herself in an emergency room where she meets a cancer patient.
Mm-hmm.
And in a very subtle and casual conversation she has with him, he tells her about the cancer that he has. And she says, well, how long have you been sick? How long have you had this affliction? And
Mm-hmm.
this cancer patient looks at her and he says, what affliction? You mean this opportunity?
Oh,
And of
yeah.
course she's absolutely floored, because cancer is an opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Because like that's insane what he said. And this is a cancer patient who is saying that to her as he's going through a blood transfusion. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
there are blood
Yeah.
bags,
Scary looking.
hanging.
Yeah.
Scary. This skeletal man with like blood bags hanging above him says that cancer, is not an affliction, it's an opportunity. Which, that's a very high viewpoint of
Mm-hmm.
life, because
Right.
no one would think of disease or death or loss or any kind of misfortune as an opportunity. So it takes a lot of strength and a lot of spiritual spiritual work, and
Uh-huh.
faith, and
Right.
you know f- it's a very philosophical approach to life, that you would see a misfortune as an opportunity. In a bigger scheme of things, it could be an opportunity. And
I
there
agree.
are so many people who are dealing with some kind of a big misfortune, big tragedy. And this is not the right way to say it, but I know that those people had taken that tragedy and had used it to rise, to maybe help others, to build on that tragedy. And even though opportunity is such a bad word, because you can't make a tragedy an opportunity, but in a bigger scheme of things, on a high point of view, it is what is happening.
I really agree with that. It's like the triumph of the human spirit, if I were
Right.
to interpret
Right.
you. Yeah, and
Right,
that's
rising
amazing.
from the ashes. And that's why I thought that, that combination would make for a good title.
Oh my gosh. So you're that's a big contribution to inspiring people, right?
Right. This is a book about ultimately about hope and the search for beauty. And that's what it says in the description of the book, that, you know, um all kinds of stuff, affairs, addictions, loss, loneliness, and ultimately hope, redemption, and
Amazing.
search for beauty.
So that's what writers are in society and culture, right? Because we write those stuff and deal with it. So are the characters composite characters? Did you one in one way or another meet these people and do a fiction?
I mean, ultimately, I am a fiction writer, but of course, no one exists in a vacuum. I
Mm-hmm.
show me a writer who makes stuff up from his imagination. I don't know, maybe Bradbury, maybe I don't know, like I'm thinking Joseph Heller. I'm thinking like um, you know, Lord of the Rings. I mean, you make like these are the writers that really make stuff up. That write utopias and
Uh-huh.
fiction and science fiction and um what's that movie with Jennifer Lawrence that everyone loves?
Oh, the it's
Science
about
fiction.
the Hunger Games.
Hunger Games. Like unless you're writing Hunger Games, I just don't see how you as a writer you can exist in a vacuum. So
Yeah.
I am not a wildly imaginative writer. So uh, the way I write is it's really kind of a mirror to what I see next to me, around me. And of course, I build on that. So
Mm-hmm.
there's definitely an inspiration in real life. I know people. Um, it could be a little bit of me. It could be a little bit of my friend. It could be a little bit of my family. And then I put it all together. And then that's when I build on that inspiration.
That's good. Do you have a mentor? Did you even have a mentor when you were younger, and then you realized like I really want to be a fiction writer? How was your journey as a writer?
Mentor. I mean, I have an editor,
Mm-hmm.
Jill Hoffman, who I've been with her for at least uh, I'd say 15 years. And, she's an incredible woman. She's an icon. She's a Guggenheim Fellow. She has a PhD from Cornell. Her books had came out from, I don't know, Simon and Schuster. So, I would call her my mentor in terms of writing.
Uh-huh.
Um, but my background had, I really started in poetry, and I was
Uh-huh.
writing poetry since I was about 15. And when I
Mm-hmm.
was about 15, I joined an editorial board of a high school magazine, art and literary magazine called Spiral, and I've always continued working on my writing. First in poetry, and then I went to Pace University, and
Mm-hmm.
I've always submitted my writing to different contests, and I've won 3 awards when I was in college, and I've never really stopped writing. So I can't say that someone inspired me. I don't think I was getting a lot of encouragement to become a writer because um, parents are not out there supporting your dream of becoming a writer.
I
I can tell you
I
for sure,
I agree with you.
Jewish
Same with my
parents are
father.
not out there, saying you need to go into poetry. That was the complete opposite.
Right, right. But you just persisted. You just
It
felt
was
it.
it was a force bigger than me. It was almost
Oh,
like a religion where, to move on, to go on, to grow, you need that.
amazing. So I'm curious, did you realize at certain age that you are going to be a writer? Were you 4, 5 years old, 6 years old? Something like that?
No, no, I'm
No,
still
no.
waiting for that moment. Any minute now. Any minute now, I will
Oh,
realize it.
you're so funny, but you have so much books already. Amazing.
I know, but I think, every writer has an imposter syndrome where um where you're really not sure, is this like a hobby? What am I
Yeah.
doing?
It's me. I think it's like not just a profession, but it's really a passion. Like it's
Right.
your in your DNA. You can't. I mean, even if you're just on a normal scheme of things, you would say, "Oh,
Mhm.
this is a good piece for writing an apple, a rotten apple, for example."
Right, right. But I
Like,
think every writer has that imposter syndrome, and also every woman. I've noticed that I know so many extraordinary women, and
mhm,
they're always a little and they're just extraordinary, and they're always a little bit insecure about what they're doing, whether they deserve that promotion, whether they deserve that uh, award,
Do you think
whether they
it's,
deserve that. It's always, while with men, I know a lot less extraordinary men who are
but they're
extremely
so sure.
confident.
Yeah. Yeah, but
I
is that
know.
part of the subconscious humility? Do you say it? Do you agree with that? Subconscious humility or what? Or feeling not,
Unfortunately, I think
no.
it's predefined gender roles. I hate to say it, and even though
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying this in 2023, but we're still living through that. It's that, you
It
know, we,
creates like a doubt in you, right?
right.
Oh my gosh. But then you're fighting it. I'm fighting it too.
Of course, I mean, we're definitely fighting it, but it's still in
Um,
the back of our minds, I think.
yes, yes, yes. So it's hard. It's like double, triple effort to persist in your your love for writing.
Hmm.
Amazing. So that's the did the pandemic was this born out of the pandemic, this book, when we were all like in isolation?
Well, you know what? I was finishing it up during the pandemic.
Mm,
Unfortunately, I had lost my job in the epicenter of pandemic, because a lot of businesses were cutting on staff. Um,
right.
and I had a great job, and I unfortunately, I was unemployed. And
Mm-hmm.
because I was looking for a job, but you have a lot of time on your hands, so I kind of sat down and I finished the book. And marketing of the book takes a lot more effort and time than actually writing it, because it's a
Oh,
completely different skill.
right.
And it requires you to think differently, to almost think like a marketeer, like you're your own PR machine. And
Right.
even though
I think
I mean,
it's
I had
tough.
it's much easier to write the book than to get it published.
Mm-hmm.
So after I finished the book, I started marketing it to different publishers. I was looking for an agent, but you can't have an agent for a book of short stories. um,
Oh.
s- right, because agents only represent novels,
Mm.
or they represent like huge names. If, let's
Mm-hmm.
say, um, I don't know, like a John Irving or somebody really, really big, like a J.K. Rowling decides to write a book of short stories, then obviously she's gonna be represented by an
Uh-huh.
agent. But that's the only exception to the rule. So I've spent a long time looking for the right publisher, and
Much
you know,
longer than you were writing?
believe it or not, I spent 4 years trying to find the right publisher, and at
Oh
the end,
my.
and
Uh-huh.
and don't get me wrong, I did have offers. I probably had 4 or 5 offers that came
Mm-hmm.
in before I went with the publisher called Crow's Nest Books. Um, but they were really, I was waiting, and it took a lot of faith, because in reality I could have just pulled the trigger on any first four and say, okay, it's fine. But
Uh-huh.
I had a certain list of requirements that I needed from a publisher. Um, like good global distribution. For instance, Crow's Nest Books has the distribution from University of Toronto Press. So
Mm-hmm.
global distribution covers United States, covers Canada, and also it takes the relationship between you and your publisher is very important.
Right.
Um, I remember I was on Zoom with this publisher, and I was on video with um, two, men, and I was thinking, and I was thinking, these two men, I mean, relatively young, I don't know, 40s. Um, they were like, we love women's fiction, and I was like, wow. I mean, this was like very, how do I
Sugar
say it?
coated.
Kind of like out of, I never imagined that these folks would be interested in a book like mine, but they've read it and they said, we're interested, we want it. And I said,
Congratulations.
yes. And working with my editor, my publisher, Louis Slavsky, was just a pleasure, because first of all, he understood the concept of the book, and he also worked with me to make it better. to make it sellable, to make it
Uh-huh.
a
Nice.
book that everyone would enjoy, because this is a book for everyone, not for women.
Uh-huh.
It's, and he added that kind of a all encompassing, all inclusive angle to the book.
That's great. So why did you not think of self-publishing instead? Why would you have to
Um,
wait for people to the publishers to get it?
Self-publishing is a completely different
Mm-hmm.
animal, because when you self-publish a book, you won't be you can't qualify for any awards, you
Right.
can't
Well,
qualify
yes.
for any reviews in major media, and it's necessary to be um, okay. You know who can afford to do well. Actually, no. The woman who wrote 50 Shades of Grey,
Uh-huh.
E.L. James. She had first self-published it because she couldn't get a publisher, and then it got bought. It was so successful that it got bought by a big five publisher. I'm not sure whether it was Random House or HarperCollins. I'm not sure, but one of the big five houses. And it took off from there. But in reality, unless you have millions of followers already,
Yeah.
um, it's
It's hard.
self-publishing, it's the last resort, because
Right. Uh-huh.
you're out there on your own, and your only hope is that you will sell it eventually to a big five publisher. And having said that, you know um signing with a big five publisher is fantastic, but still you need to do a lot of marketing
Right.
and
It's
legwork
more
on
effort.
your own.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I agree. I've been self-publishing for the past years, so and then I you just completely forget about it. Like I go on with my life, and it's like, oh, I have a book. I need to market it
Right.
again. So that's the downside of it.
Right. And
Yeah.
it's unfortunate, because I know so many great writers who are having a hard time landing the right publisher, and they end up self-publishing. And self-publishing is very difficult in terms of marketing, because
Hmm. It's
you're
hard to
you are
market
your
yourself.
own PR
Yeah.
machine. And unless you are out there selling and selling, or you're I don't know, or you have a sex tape out like Kim Kardashian, that's when
You
everybody's
sell.
gonna that's when you sell. And that's
Yeah.
unfortunate, because so much great literature is unrecognized these days, only because of this kind of a pop culture that we live in, that
I
a
know.
celebrity who has a leaked sex tape can get a $3 million advance from a big five publisher, and then sell a completely terrible book, but
I
only
know.
because they have that kind of exposure that really has nothing to do with their talent
With the
as a
book.
writer. that's
I know.
that's
It's not
crazy.
fair, right?
I know, absolute craziness. Or like, um, right now there's a lot of buzz about this new book that came out from Prince Harry,
Oh, Prince Harry.
where
Spare.
yes, Spare. I don't, I mean, I really don't follow British royalty
Uh-huh.
news. But I'm just kind of. But I heard on the news, whether it was BBC or CNN, that he got a $20 million advance
Hmm.
to write this book. I mean, last time I heard, Prince Harry is not a writer, but okay. Um,
He has a
but it's a
ghostwriter. It's been acknowledged.
right. But what is he like? What's the value of this book? Somebody said on television that he's trashing his family.
Hmm.
Okay, so you get a $20 million advance from a big five publisher to trash your family?
Because they have the name, and they sell even just for curiosity's sake, actually.
I know.
So,
I know,
that's a
and that's
disadvantage.
unfortunate that a writer like you or a writer like me, we have to struggle.
Okay, I agree. I agree. But it's all right. I'm enjoying it.
You
The more,
do the best you can with what you
yeah,
have, of
yeah,
course.
we have to like love what we do. So it just it becomes not a hard work, but an
Hmm.
enjoyable kind of work. So I'll shift a little bit on your being a mountaineer.
Yeah,
So what's behind this? Why do you like it? Were you a very sporty
not at
person as
all.
well?
Not at all. I was never a sporty person. I mean, I only started hiking and climbing mountains probably 10, 12 years ago. I just
Mhm.
found it to be a very calming experience. I think,
Really?
you know how when infants, when they're crying, and then, you take them for a walk and, you wheel the
They
cart
keep
and
quiet. Yeah.
they keep quiet. It's the same kind of motion that calms you down. So
Oh.
let's say if you're upset or if there's something going on, uh, a good advice is to go for a good long walk.
Mhm.
And I find that for me, I always love to walk. And then I like nature. And then I went my first big hike was to Machu Picchu, and I went to Machu Picchu and I was sold because I never looked back because that experience was so uplifting, so spiritual. So I came back every day at the end of the hike. I felt like everything was in place. And
Amazing.
that's a feeling that I guess, your endorphins kick in. And
Uh, you get
and
story ideas while walking,
I don't necessarily
or you
get
talk to
story
yourself?
ideas. I usually listen to music, but what
Mhm.
happens was, let's say in the beginning of a hike, I start a hike and there's something on my mind. Like I have a question, I have an issue,
Oh.
trying to workshop through it. And I find that at the end of this hike, at the end, and there are hikes that are like an hour, 2 hours, and then there are, on big hikes, you could be hiking 12 hours at the end of that
Wow.
hike. I always have the answer. I always have
Oh.
the solution, or some kind of an enlightenment to the issue I started with.
That's
Because
so
as
amazing.
you're walking, and quite often the hikes are extremely challenging because you're ascending. You could be ascending at a 70-degree angle. You could be like
Yeah.
rock climbing, and there's an element, a little element of maybe danger. Um, and you kind of like open up and you let all your guard down and you let all your and you're not thinking in not in stereotypes. You're not thinking in
In,
insecurities. You're kind of like you're open, and you allow for those ideas to come in.
that's
And when you're
amazing.
open, that's when things really happen. That's when you reach a new level of understanding and
And realization,
knowledge
whatever it is. Yeah, right?
and realization, right? So that's why I like how. And honestly, it does not hurt with fitness. And
I know.
I'm in pretty good
Look at
shape.
you. Look at
And
you.
that's a great photo. I was at an
Amazing.
event,
Yeah. So that's a
national
result
arts.
of hiking, right?
Of course, I haven't
Knockout
been to
beauty.
honestly, I haven't been to the gym since 2019.
But you
Seriously, I
just,
haven't been to
uh-huh.
the gym in 4 years.
You just walk
Right.
nature trek. Wow.
Nature track. And also on the weekends, I mean, I live in Brooklyn, and so on Saturdays or Sundays I am a
Mm-hmm.
part of a kind of a fitness group called Dance Walk Brooklyn.
Uh-huh.
um, and a group of women and sometimes men, we dance walk through Prospect Park. So that's once a week, and that's a good workout and also a good kind of energy booster. So I
Right.
do that.
Amazing.
And one day a week over the weekend, I probably take a really long walk, but we're talking about 3, 4 hours.
So but you walk with friends. You don't walk alone.
I do not walk with friends. I don't have friends who are available for long walks. I walk with a headset, not this headset. I work with my headphones,
Oh,
and
amazing.
I always listen to music. Um,
You inspire me to walk a little bit more, to push myself more out of my comfort zone.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it works every time. I've never had an issue that taking a long walk
Mm,
would not solve.
amazing. Thank you so much for your time with me, Marina. And
Thank you.
congratulations again. And
Thank you for having me.
it's my pleasure. And all the best on Knockout Beauty and Other Afflictions coming
Thank you
this
so much.
Thursday.
And
Bye,
I will
Marina.
see you at the party.
I'll see you there. Take
Okay.
care. God
Thank
bless.
you.
Bye for now.
Bye.
We'll be back, ladies and gentlemen. So that was Marina Rubin a while ago. I had an interview with her early today. So thank you, Marina, for that very lovely conversation. I learned a lot and I've been inspired by you and your ability to really just push for what is good for be able for having able to share your wonderful writing to the public. So this is going to be on Thursday, the book launch of Marina Rubin's Knockout Beauty and Other Afflictions. That was a great interview. And for now, I would like to give you additional good news, ladies and gentlemen. The Filipino community is welcoming the new Consul General, Philippine Consul General in New York. Here he is. Would like to welcome him. He is already officially holding his post, and we would like to welcome Consul General Sinen Mangalili, who officially assumed office on January 9 as the Philippine Consul General in New York. And Mr. Mangalili brings with him considerable experience in the delivery of consular services. And having served as Assistant Secretary of DFA's Office of Consular Affairs, Consul General at the Philippine Embassy in London, and the consul at the Philippine Consulate General in Osaka. He was the first consul from an ASEAN country to be elected by his peers as president of the Consular Corps of London, as the oldest consular corps in the world, having been established in 1902. So, Conjen Mangalili is a member of the Rotary Club of Manila, the Knights of Rizal, and other social and civic organizations, and he hopes to spark new collaborations among various organizations and individuals in New York for the promotion of Philippine culture, protection of the rights of Filipino migrants, strengthening of economic linkages, and celebrating the contributions of Filipino Americans to the fabric of American society. So welcome po sa New York, Conjen Senen Mangalili. So we will have a press conference. We'll have a conference, media conference pretty soon with Conjen Mangalili. And at this point, I also, before we wrap up, I'd like to plug this very important Pinoy tour in 2023. It's January, so mga kababayan, you may want to plan ahead and join this very important um, vacation package that you could avail of. You save the date on July 16 to 24, 2023, because this is a tour that will take you to Manila, Iloilo, and Boracay. And for more information, you could call the Philippine Consulate General in Los Angeles and about this tour, and see the page. The official launch in Los Angeles is in January, and also here in New York. So there is a Facebook page to this. This is www.facebook.com/very important Pinoy tour 2023. So check that out. It's so good to visit Boracay, Iloilo, a very old city and modern at the same time, and of course, the capital, Manila. So that's it for now for this second episode of ours. I hope you enjoyed it, and see you again in our future episodes, which will be soon. Okie dokie. So for now, take care, everyone. Keep warm and enjoy life. Bye for now. Bye bye.
Hi everyone, this is Marie here.